Hi, I'm Paul with rackattack.com, here to show you the Kuat Piston Pro X hitch-mounted platform bicycle carrier. We're going to go into all the features and benefits of this rack to show you what makes this Kuat's ultra premium hitch-mounted bicycle carrier. So for starters, we'll do the full assembly from the box all the way to installation onto the vehicle and loading bicycles. So we do have chapters at the bottom of the video screen here so that you can skip to different sections if you'd like. But let's get started with the assembly of this. So at this point, I've only actually reviewed the product manual on the website. So I've never actually even seen this rack in person. So I get to do that from scratch here. Now, I know that when you assemble this rack, it's suggested to assemble this directly on the back of the vehicle. So what we're going to do is we have a display stand here, and we'll assemble this onto a display stand which acts as the vehicle. Okay, so the first step is we'll go ahead and remove the shipping band. Normally there's two, but one of them popped off in shipping. So we'll get that out of the way first, and then lift off the lid. Okay, so first look, you can see we have one of their cards here that you can look at, just special cards and stickers for you. Just a nice little compliment to the rack. All right, and then packaging wise, dense foam padding, which is a good sign that you can expect your rack to be delivered in good condition. Let's go ahead and start removing those. And because they are padded, I feel comfortable just setting those down onto the floor. So the first step, had I not already seen the instructions, I would be looking for the instructions so that I can identify all the parts to make sure I'm familiar with all the parts. So here in this box will be your instructions. So they do have an online PDF copy of that, which you can preview, as I mentioned. And one of the first steps, okay, so those are all the components, all the parts. Okay, now behind me you can see this is just a dealer display stand that we'll be using instead of actually installing this onto a vehicle. We will install it onto a vehicle later. Okay, so we have the parts set aside. Here's the accessory box in Kuat's signature burlap bag. We see these on all the other Kuat products. Okay, so there's the bag. Now, at this step, what's important to do is identify all the parts that are in the manual and familiarize yourself with those parts as you lay them out. That way, you'll know you have everything and everything's ready to go. So we have our keys, the fasteners. There's two tools that are included. So far the only tool that I've actually used was just a heavy-duty scissors to cut into that shipping band. Okay, this is the LED connection. Here we have the foot pedal lever. Okay, so those are all the parts. Now we can go ahead and do the first step, which is to take your hitch base assembly, and that's what this is here. I will insert that into the display here. I want to make sure that it's loose. So that it'll actually fit into the base. Okay. Now we have the locking hitch pin and the keys that are included. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock that in order to insert the hitch pin. Here you can see I have that lined up. And we'll do this also because this doesn't have the exact specifications of an actual hitch. We'll review this again when we install this onto an actual vehicle. But for the assembly side, this is what we need to be doing here. Okay, so we have that done. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the first step of the assembly, which is to put on the foot pedal. So back this way, we have the foot pedal. This is a hand lever foot pedal combination. It requires this fastener, which has a small lock washer there, and this tool that they've included is what we'll be using to put that on. Okay, so that goes on right here at that connection point. It has flat spots, so you can't put it on wrong, so as long as you angle it in the correct direction, it'll go on properly. Okay, so that's the correct direction. That's the foot pedal with the ridges there. You can use your foot to raise and lower the platform, or if the angle is easier, you can grab this upper portion with your hands. Okay, so you notice I'm using the long end just to get most of the threading tightened, but I'll use the short end and the long lever to finish that off. So I'm just using the force of a couple fingers there to get it snug, and then we're good. Okay, so now at this point I can go ahead and put this platform into the horizontal deployed position. As we're here, we can see some of the intricate features of this. This is a magnetic junction for the LED lights. So when you assemble the different sections, they automatically engage and create your circuit. And also while we're here, you can see this is the lock mechanism that'll be used for the security cable as well. From assembly standpoint, these are temporary stickers that have been added, A, B, C, D, and those will correspond to the trays. So let's go ahead and identify the trays. So we're looking first for the A and B, and they'll have stickers on them. Okay, so there's C. That's where they're putting the stickers. So I'm going to skip this one for the time being and find the A and B. Okay, so there's B. Now, something that's will help quite a bit with the assembly is there is a slot that corresponds to a point on the tray which will hold the tray in place temporarily. So I just lift up at an angle and then set down, and that's holding itself in place. A big benefit, a simple addition that makes assembly significantly easier. So now I'm assuming that this would be the A. No, that's D. So let's go on to this one. That is our A. Okay, so now I'm going to put A. Again, I'm going in at an angle. And I'm having a little interference, so what I'm going to do is remove this temporary shipping component here by just pulling that out of the way, and I'm going to go ahead and press in the release to extend out the support arm so I can get that angle that I need. I'm pretty sure that was the cause. Okay. There we go. That may not have been necessary, but I did that. But it's the next step anyway. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing. Just press in on the lever to release, to release that arm. Okay, so the next step is to use the bolts that are provided. And it's one bolt for tray. So I'll go in from this side, extend through, and then there's a place for the nut on the opposite side. Okay, so I'll go ahead and take the tool that's provided, the 8mm tool. There's a ball end to the tool, which will make the tightening of this easier at a slight angle. Once you get to the point where the nylon on the nut engages with the threads on the bolt, you'll feel resistance and you'll have to switch to the short end. And now this part will take probably 30 seconds or so to get this tight. So if you notice, I'm using my finger on one end to keep it embedded in the hexagon insert on that side so that it won't move. But at a certain point that won't be necessary, probably about here. As I push on this, it'll engage with that hexagon side. Okay, so let's keep working on this. So on previous versions of Kuat platform racks, this part of the assembly required quite a bit more effort. So they've definitely made some significant improvements with the assembly of the rack. That'll speed assembly and make it a lot more enjoyable when you receive your rack and it's time to put it together. Okay, so now that's already finished. Now we can go ahead and do the opposite side. So we're looking for C and D. So here was C. So I can just essentially hang it by engaging it. So there we have it. And then here we have the D. Let's see if that was necessary to open, or if I just wasn't, yeah, it wasn't even necessary to open it earlier. But again, the next step is to remove the clips. And this may be your first look at the release lever. The release lever can be actuated just by a squeeze and a squeeze. And if there's more tension on it, it's even possible to punch it with your fist if you want to. So they're tough, they're strong, and anybody can easily open the release on those. Now, while I'm doing this one, I can kind of go over some of the features on this rack. And so the assembly is nearly complete, but as a platform rack, you're maintaining a consistent ride height with your bicycles over the ground. So you'll never drag wheels on the ground. So that's just a general benefit of a platform rack. This particular type is a hoop design versus previous Kuat designs, which were hook on wheel. So this design will offer a wider range of wheel and tire compatibility, as well as more options for offsetting bikes between one another. So, and several other features too. So we'll go into those in more detail. Okay, so this is nearly tight. And the next step after this will be just to demonstrate the lock and a couple other key features, but that essentially is the entire assembly of this Kuat Piston X. So you can see that was a very simple, straightforward assembly. I think pretty much anyone could do that, and we're doing it live, uncut, in just a few minutes. And now you can take a close-up look at the Kuat piston X. Okay, now we have included is a heavy-duty cable, and I don't know the exact specifications of this other than I believe it's a 12mm cable with multi-strands braided, and the idea with this is that it's long enough to extend around the front and rear wheel of two bikes, and we'll definitely test that on the next segment of this video. So you can see you have quite a bit of length here. So the concept is you wrap the cable around the bikes, you run the lockdown end through the loop, and then bring it down into the main body of the rack. Okay, so that is positioned there for convenience, so it's very easy to access, and the same key that was used for locking the hitch bolt is the same key that's used to release that lock. So that's very convenient. Okay, now here we have the LED connector. This is a flat 4, so if your vehicle is not equipped with a flat 4, they do make adapters. Many SUVs and other vehicles that have a hitch may already have a wire harness as part of that package. If yours doesn't, wire harnesses are generally available, and if your vehicle does not have a flat 4, they do make inexpensive adapters that'll adapt to this flat 4. Okay, so something that makes this design unique, we discussed how it's already pre-wired through the body of the rack and automatically makes connections as you assemble it. So here you have on the back side, if we can see that, you have a magnetic connection, and that magnetic connection will allow you to connect to the rack very easily without having to leave it on full time. And then, in addition to that, you have magnetic holders that you can customize to your particular arrangement. So here you can see I'm going to have this come down to the stinger of the hitch, and then the hitch itself here. And then with the excess length, that is what would connect to your particular wire harness on your vehicle. And so the concept there, once that's plugged in, we can come back to the front. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this cable out of the way. And let me go ahead and put the arms back down. Okay, so the arms come down without touching the lever. Now here I can grab the lever that we installed originally. Okay, and here you can see we have LED lights. So these LED lights can be visible whether the rack is in this upright stowed position or in the lowered carrying position. So that's going to replicate all the tail light functions that you have on your vehicle, including hazards, turn signals, and brake lights. Another nice feature, just from a standpoint of showing off the brand, is the new logo, the new treatment of the logo there. And let's go ahead and demonstrate again the foot pedal. So with my foot, I can release it, and then I can snap it back. And let's take a look at how it attaches to the hitch. So here we have another lock. So let's go ahead and take that and put it in the unlock position. Now I can pull out this tool, and this is the tool that's used where this fastener is. Now, this fastener is a hollow point hex, and so that's the tool that we'll use when we put it onto the vehicle to tighten the flat wedge that goes into the receiver hitch to remove wobble between the stinger of the rack and the receiver hitch. So when you tighten that, And bear in mind, that is a security tool. So that offers a high level of security. That in addition to the locking hitch pin that we installed originally. Okay, so now once that's in place, you can return it to the position and lock it. Okay, so that tool is always there for you when you need it. Now, something we can look at since we have this up is within the carrier, we have another 8mm hex. So that allows us to take off this outer cap in order for us to add a 1-bike add-on or a 2-bike add-on. And those products are also available for this rack to extend its carrying capabilities. Okay, so let's take another look at some other aspects here. So we have the release lever I mentioned earlier. You can push it, you can punch it as I just did there. And when you do that, that reveals the unique coating that's on this material. So this function is a hydro strut or a gas strut, and that's what's pushing this into place. So it's a hands-free, a one-hand operation. This coating is called Kashima coat, and that will provide a very smooth operation when it's new, and it'll feel newer, longer than even a hard anodized type finish. So this is a brand name coating. It does have patents, and it is an upgrade over a traditional hard anodized coating. And since we're talking about some of these features, material-wise, we have aluminum throughout and a steel hitch base. One of the features of this rack is that there are very little plastic pieces, and that's what I wanted to identify. And I believe it's hard to find any plastic pieces anywhere on this rack. Kuat has gone out of their way to replace anything that would normally be of plastic out of cast aluminum, stainless steel, and the only thing I can feel maybe is this is the wheel chock here, and it has two rubberized release levers to allow you to engage into different positions for supporting different wheel configurations. And those, they have a rubberized coating, but I can't even say that that's plastic. So if there are any plastic pieces on this rack, I haven't been able to find them yet. Okay, so next up, we'll take this rack and install it onto a vehicle. We'll begin to load bikes, and we'll go over that in detail next. Okay, so now we have the Piston Pro X installed onto this vehicle, which is equipped with a 2-inch receiver hitch. We have it loaded with 2 bikes. So what we'll do at this point is remove the bikes, remove the rack, show you how the rack is installed onto the vehicle, and then start going over some of the other fine details and benefits of this rack design. Okay, so to remove the bike, I'm just going to get control of the bike and release that lever, and the bike comes off. Let me set this off to the side. Same thing with this bike. Just give it a punch, and then off goes the bike. Okay, so let's bring in the arms. Those are in the stowed position now. Okay, and what I'll do next is I can bring the rack into the upright position here. And then in order to remove the rack from the hitch, I'm going to go ahead and access our tool that's housed right here in the top. Okay. And then with the tool here, I can insert it into that security fastener. and loosen the flat lock wedge from the inside of the hitch. So I'll get that loose. Now, of course, we have the security of the hollow point hex and the hollow point fastener, but in addition to that, the rack won't come off until we remove the stainless steel locking hitch pin. So let's do that. There is a dust cover, which will open up that dust cover and just give the lock a remove, and then now we have the hitch lock removed here. Okay, also we have our wire for the LED lights, and I'm just going to go ahead and unplug that from the connector on the vehicle, and now I can go ahead and pull the rack off of the vehicle. Now the rack itself, we discussed the construction of the rack, which is a steel stinger and the assembly steel section above it, but we also have the majority of the rack, which is aluminum, and this adds up to approximately 64 pounds total. Okay, and I want to show you the flat lock here. So when we tighten the knob, the fastener at the other end, that will push this into the corner of the receiver and provide a very effective anti-wobble both horizontally and vertically. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Now, when you're installing this rack, it's always best to do it when it's in this right angle stowed position. So I'll just insert it, start pushing it inward. Now at this point, I want to take the hitch pin and insert it through the hitch pin hole and use it as a feeler to find the hole in the stinger. So I'm going to start pushing the rack inward. It's found that hole. Now I insert that all the way through, and then I'll go ahead and put the lock mechanism on. Now I want to put the lock mechanism on with the key still installed. That way it ensures that I have access to the key. And for example, if I snapped it on without the key and it were facing in a different direction, I may not be able to get the key back on. So that is just best practice there. Now let's go ahead and cover up that lock mechanism with the cover. Also, it's important to note that these lock housings do allow for the removal of the lock core in order for various Kuat products to be key matched. Okay, so we got that closed. Now we'll go ahead and plug back in our flat 4, and we'll go ahead and demonstrate the actual function of these taillights now that we actually have it hooked into the vehicle. And now what I want to point out is that you do have visibility whether the LED is in this stowed position or in the carrying position. Okay, so let me just step to the side and I'll demonstrate that. First with the hazards, and then I can show you the brakes. Okay, so that gives you an example. Of course, you also have turn signals and running lights too. However, we'd have to start up the vehicle in the garage, and we don't want to do that for this demonstration. Okay, so now that I have the installation of the locking hitch pin, you'll notice the rack itself is not fully secured, so we want to use our tool and tighten this back up. And as I tighten, I do want to go ahead and rock it a little bit, and as I rock it, that flat lock on the inside of the receiver hitch will get nested into the corner and provide that very, very effective anti-wobble both vertically and horizontally. Okay, so effective that when you try to move the rack, there is absolutely no movement side to side or up and down either. between the rack and the hitch. So that can make a big difference when you go over rough roads or over speed bumps. So it helps to minimize some of that whipping effect that can occur when there's a lot of play between the stinger and the hitch. So there is no play on this rack. Okay, so now it's time to go ahead and load up the bikes. Let me go ahead and use that foot pedal. I've got that tool in my back pocket, so let's go ahead and stow that again. Gotta use the key to get it locked back in place. There we go. Okay, so that's locked on and that's there for you anytime you need it. Okay, so let's go ahead and load the inside bike first. I'll just go ahead and release that release lever. Now, we discussed a little bit about this mechanism earlier in the assembly portion of this video, but I do want to elaborate on the mechanics of this. This is considered a gas spring, and it's not unlike the actual gas springs that are used to lift and support the rear hatch of, most likely, of your vehicle. If you have an SUV or a hatchback vehicle where you have those gas springs, this is the same dependable type of mechanism with the added benefit of the Kashima coat, which will ensure smooth operation for a long time, long service life. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll just go ahead and take the mountain bike again. Now, I put the mountain bike on the opposite direction the first time, but it doesn't matter. You can choose which direction you put your bike on. What you're looking for is you just don't want contact between bikes, and to prevent contact between bikes, you can offset the bikes from one another. You can have the bikes go in the same direction or opposite direction. Lots of versatility with this design. So I have this already set in the position for this wheel size, which is a 29-inch wheel. I'll bring that into place. I'll bring the front wheel one into place and just squeeze those, and that's got the bike securely held with those hoops. Okay, let's do the same thing with the road bike. Just press that lever and press this lever. Let's take one moment to also show the other capabilities that this tray design has. So what I can also do is move this lever down into another position here, and that position allows for attachment of a ramp, and the ramp will allow for more easily loading of heavy bikes. For example, e-bikes, which can be pretty heavy. So each of these trays on this 2-inch version of the Piston Pro X can accommodate a bike weighing all the way up to 67 pounds. So you have a very sturdy design and also a convenient design that allows you to load a heavier bike with a ramp, and the ramp is an accessory that's sold separately. Okay, let me go ahead and grab that road bike. Now with the road bike, I can go the opposite direction or the same direction, wherever I'm finding that I get the least amount of contact. Now here, I'm seeing some contact between the seat and the handlebars, so I can find a place on the tray where that allows me to prevent that contact, or I can even try just to go the opposite direction. Many times it's recommended that you have bikes going the opposite direction, but in this case, we're free to position it in this manner. Okay, and I also want to point out the convenience of the wheel chock here. So this design is completely tools free. You just squeeze and you can slide the wheel chock up and down into the various positions. And for added convenience, these are actually labeled, and Most other racks of this style aren't labeled, which means you have to either memorize which each of these holes are for, or you have to reference your manual. Here you don't have to do that. So we know for sure this is your 29-inch or 700C. We also have another position for 700C, and then you have 26, all the way down to this lower position here, which we want to point out. You can see here it says fender kit only. So the combination of the wheel chock and a set of Velcro straps, which are sold separately for people that have fenders on their bikes, this will press against the tire, and then you run the Velcro strap around the wheel chock and around the wheel in order to provide additional stability. But this actually expands your carrying capability from standard bikes without fenders to bikes with fenders, which includes so many of the various e-bikes on the market which do have fenders. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this back up to the 700C. We have soft grip levers, a nice touch, instead of just raw metal there. So it feels good to use. And I'll go ahead and bring that back into position. And now we have this second road bike ready for transport. Now, from a security standpoint, we discussed the cable during the assembly portion of the video. So for further confirmation, this is a 12mm cable, very heavy duty cable, very difficult to cut, and it is 9.5 feet long. And so there are different methods of using this cable in order to maximize the length. So of course you can go around the bikes in one big loop and then run that locking portion down and connect it to your lockdown point. But I want to go ahead and also show another method that allows for to get even more length out of this cable. So what we'll do is first start your loop at the very first part that you want to lock, which in this case will be the back wheel and frame of this road bike. Then I'm going to go ahead and bring it through the rear wheel of the mountain bike. Now you are getting rubbing and contact with this cable on the various components and surfaces. However, Kuat thoughtfully uses a very soft touch coating to be very protective as you're doing that. So now I have the back wheel of the mountain bike and even the rear suspension components, and now I'll get the frame and I'll get this front wheel of this bike and the front wheel of the other bike. Let me go ahead and pull out all the slack. There's plenty of slack left over. And here you have a very effective theft deterrent for expensive wheels, expensive frames. And now I'm going to come down to your conveniently positioned lockdown point, and with the same key that's used for your tool, for your hitch lock, the same key is used to unlock that as well. Okay, now with the bikes fully loaded, if you need access into the back of your vehicle, which has a hatch or perhaps a tailgate, it's another nice feature and benefit. Just pull that lever, assist in lowering it, and now you can see you can open up the rear hatch with most vehicle arrangements. And then to return it, we just lift and it automatically snaps into that carrying position. Now, it's important to note that if you choose to expand from the 2-bike to a 3-bike, which requires a 1-bike add-on, or a 4-bike, which requires the 2-bike add-on, both of which are sold separately, it requires removal of this lower end cap. And then when you purchase those, they will actually come with their own release levers that allows easy access to raise and lower the rack without using the foot pedal or hand release. You just reach underneath and you'll be able to have easy access to that. That functionality is provided when you purchase the 1-bike or the 2-bike add-on. Okay, so I think we've covered the majority of the features on this Kuat Piston Pro X. This is Kuat's ultra premium platform rack design. Now the Pro X is the top of the line. In the future, we're expecting other variations of this, which may lack some of the high-end features of this, but will come in at lower price points. So do keep an eye out for those. But for now, if you have any questions or comments about this particular rack, feel free to leave those in the comments section below. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, we have over 2,000 rack-related videos, so consider subscribing. And that's all for this one, and thanks for watching.